When we hold on to grievance and pain from the past, we keep ourselves from being able to really move into our fullest expression of self. We need to practice forgiveness from the soul recovery perspective, dissipating the energy and releasing the past for good. If you're interested in this profound transformation, I invite you to join me in Colorado the weekend of June 8th and 9th to have an incredible experience with others on this same soul recovery journey. 2 full days of immersion in the soul recovery process where you will indeed leave transformed. You will be able to truly let go of these old pains and step into a new way of being. Check out the show notes for a coupon code and how to register. One of the first steps is to let go of regret. Let go of the I should haves. If only I had. Be in presence right now. Allow yourself to grieve the relationship that you didn't have, the job that you didn't have. Allow yourself to feel those feelings. It's not about pushing those down. But we're not going to live from that pain. We're not going to be in a state where that is the definition of who we are. And so now our life is like this. Every day, you get to make a decision. Who am I? How am I connected to my higher power? What is the best for me? What is my highest good? How can I translate out into the world my best self? How can I live from my best self? My name is Reverend Rachel Harrison, and this is the Recover Your Soul podcast, a spiritual path to a happy and healthy life. I started Recover Your Soul after having profound changes in my life from my recovery of alcoholism, control addiction, and codependency. I was guided to share the tools and principles of spirituality and soul recovery to help others transform their lives as mine was transformed. For us to overcome external circumstances, we must first turn the attention to ourselves, focusing on inner change. Positive results in our lives will follow. Welcome back to the Recover Your Soul podcast. This is Reverend Rachel. Thank you for joining me today. It means so much to me that you choose to spend your time here. And if you're new to the community, welcome to this amazing community that is growing. I hope you'll also join the Facebook group so that you can connect with more people. There's information in the show notes to connect with that. And if you're coming back, it just is such an honor to me that you continue to show up into this place. And we are doing our soul recovery journey together. In this episode, I wanted to talk about regret. And I wanted to talk about that feeling that we have that's like, man, if I had only done this, if it had only looked like that, if I had only changed this one thing, if I had only regret. And I know that for many of us, including myself, there is regret in our lives. And how do we deal with that? How do we open up to that? How do we work on forgiving ourselves for the choices that we made at the different places that we were in our life? How do we let it go? Rich and I just got back from our road trip that we just took to go visit the boys just outside of Las Vegas, Nevada for one of Bodhi's races. And we had a great time until it wasn't great. And it made me really think of this part of us that has regret. And what ended up happening was on the last day, he came off one of the jumps and came down and not sure what happened, but he flew forward and he broke his collarbone. And immediately someone yelled to me, "Mama Rachel, Bodhi's hurt." And Rich and I just went into our thing that you do as parents of taking care of a kid who's hurt. And it's been a long time since I've been around either one of my kids with that kind of an injury. You know, Rich had his finger cut off last summer, so I went through that. But I observed myself go into that place that you go into where you just, it's like super hyper focus funnel, make sure that everything gets done, no emotion, take care of the situation. And we ended up going to 2 ERs, thinking that we were going to get him to surgery in the second ER and spending the whole day with him. And, you know, ultimately, I am so grateful that we were there. You know, you don't want to be with your child getting hurt. We wanted him to have fun. We wanted him to win the race. And he was winning. And we wanted that, but that's not ended up what happening. But I'm so grateful that he hasn't been seriously injured since he started this sport. And if he was going to do that, at least we were there, and at least he wasn't too far from where he lives, and everything's going to be okay. But I found myself, as Rich and I were driving home, in that place of, if only this had been like this. What if this had been like this? If only. And it was all the pieces of it. Not only was it Bodhi saying, I meant to go switch out to a different board. If only he had switched out to a different board, maybe that wouldn't have happened. If only there had been, I don't know, some circumstance that would have made it be different. All the way to the parts where, if only we had known this, then we wouldn't have gone to 2 emergency rooms. We would have only gone to 1 emergency room. If only we had known this was going to happen, then we would have done these other things. And I watched my mind spin in the regret and the way that we beat ourselves up for how, when we look back on the situation, that we wished that we would have done it different. As Rich and I were driving back to Colorado on our long road trip of 12 hours, so you have plenty of time to think, I found myself going back and thinking a lot about the regret of my life. I think my heart was heavy, and I was in a place of feeling overwhelmed because we left a child with a broken collarbone who needed to have surgery but had to go home on his own, and just how powerless I felt in all of that, how hard it was to go through that complicated situation and then just kind of drive away, just walk away and know that I couldn't be there in the way that I normally would like to be there, to be of support and help to him. And so it had me in a place where I was easily moved towards the darker sides, to the places where generally I don't go. Really, I don't spend a lot of time thinking about what should have been or having regret. But I found myself in this situation feeling lonely. Rich was in his own place of feeling scared and upset and nervous. And one of the things that I think that we still need to work on together, because there's always work that needs to happen in relationship, is generally one of us is better when the other person is down, and it goes back and forth. But when we're both down, we are still figuring out how to be present for the other person in a way that the other person needs. If you've worked with me, what I recognize that when we're in pain is that we tend to go back to younger parts of ourselves, parts that are easily access the pain, because our awakened selves are feeling whole and full. But when we're in pain and we're in suffering because we have an attachment, and I'm attached to wanting my son to be well, we tend to start to move down into those other parts of ourselves that access our pain more easily. And in that emotional space that I was in, and having just left an environment that had, hundreds of people, including my kids, just partying like crazy. And if you listen to the episode last week that I aired from their Christmas episode about talking about their sobriety or lack of it or desire for it, I found myself just really in a place of thinking, it's so interesting that when I was that age, having a good time was my number one thing. I remember that. I wanted to be having a good time like that. It was my number one drive. Figuring out who I was, having this sense of self, being around other people that were having fun. That is how Rich and I connected. It definitely was. And yet it's hard being a sober person to be in an environment where everybody's out there feeling like they're doing that, and I feel like I'm an outsider. At the same time, I'm okay with it. It's these different elements of myself. It's my observer that I'm working on that can be in all those situations and just watch how I feel instead of being wrapped up in how I feel. As a spiritual coach, I can support you on your path to make deep and real changes that will bring you a life of peace, happiness, connection, and abundance. Visit the website recoveryoursoul.net to book coaching sessions, read the blog, listen to some of my original music, and subscribe to receive email updates. I think of Recover Your Soul as a community. Follow us on social media, join the private Facebook group, and even our monthly soul recovery support group on Zoom to support each other and connect. For an extra episode each week, become a Patreon member or subscribe on Apple Podcasts. If these episodes are helping you in any way and you want to donate, you want to really figure out how can I support this community and recover your soul, please look at the show notes below. There is a link to be able to donate monthly, $3, $5, $8, or $10. This cost of a fancy cup of coffee would really help support this community and recover your soul. Together, we can do the work that will recover your soul. But the regret comes from this place of observing how much I love my children and how wonderful it was to see them. And at the same time that it felt like I was ready to go, that we had just had this great time together. And then Bodhi had gotten hurt, and then we dealt with him getting hurt. And then I was ready just to go back into my world, my peaceful world that I've created for myself, my serenity, my ability to take care of myself. And there was a lot of pain behind that because I felt like if I had made different choices, if I had been sober when they were kids, if I had had a different relationship with Rich, would I feel that way? Would my first inclination be that we are better separate than we are to be together all the time? And there was a real sadness in that. My wish, if I could go back and change it, if I could do it different, would be that I had had those young party years, but I hadn't drawn them out for so long and been an active alcoholic in the home with my kids growing up. That my husband and I wouldn't have had all those years where we were at odds with each other, where there was so much anger and frustration in the house. That my son Alex hadn't have had such a hard time with his dad, and that I would have supported him differently, that I would have been able to handle that situation differently. But when I allowed myself to think about it, what I came to was this tenderness to myself, because it's almost the same as the emergency room situations. That as soon as you can step forward and see a broader picture, you are upset with yourself for the choices that you made at that time. And the truth is that we went to the first emergency room because it was the closest one, and Bodhi was in excruciating pain. And we didn't think at that time that the smartest thing would to drive another half an hour with him in pain to a bigger hospital. So I have to be kind to myself with that. I have to allow myself to say, in that situation, that was the right choice to make. And then you make the next choice. And then you learn, and then you grow, and then you have a part of you that is able to decipher and decide for yourself, am I going to learn from this? Am I going to grow from it? Or am I going to beat myself up about it? And so when I look back at my life and I started to notice those places in myself where I had this deep sadness of regret, if only I had done something different, if only I had made different choices. And I allow myself to go back and touch those tender parts of myself that says, at that moment in your life, that was the best that I had to do. That was the best I had to offer myself. That was the best I had to offer my children. That my pain that I had in those moments where drinking was my only way to bring myself any soothing or have fun or reward or to cover my pain, that's where I was right then. And instead of beating myself up about it and saying, you should have been a different way, you should have made different choices, there's not anything that I can do about that. But what I can say is those situations, those moments, those dark times have allowed me to be in a situation right here, right now, where I am making different choices of how I behave and how I am. And I just went into an entire weekend with my whole family and 100 other people, at least 100 other people, and had a fabulous time and allowed people to be exactly who they were and got along with my husband and loved up on my kids and watched them be exactly who they were and was proud of exactly who they are. That's success. That's success, to allow people to be exactly who they are. Now, that choice that says to me, I've had enough. I've had enough, and now it's time for me to go back to my world. Once I had a little bit of space from that, what I could give myself was, this is my soul recovery where I'm taking care of me. And I have an awareness that the intensity of that lifestyle and all that goes along with it, including injuries, I don't have to be on that world. I don't have to be in that movie. I don't have to ride that bus with them. I get to decide for myself in soul recovery because I've done the work on myself that says, here's what I've learned about my life. Here's the places that I've learned who I am and how I need to be and what is right for me. And that actually means that it's okay that there's limited amounts of us all together, or even limited amounts that I spend with my husband in the way that I spend time with him, limited amounts that I spend with my friends. And that if I allow myself to go back and be caught in regret, that I wish that I had said this to that person in a relationship, a friendship, for example. I wish that I had done this differently. I have regret over situations in my life that how I dealt with money, or how I dealt with jobs, or how I dealt with, oh my gosh, a bazillion things. Then I'm actually living in the past and beating myself up and not learning. I'm not allowing myself to learn the lessons that need to be learned so that I can be in this environment right now, having anticipated for, having had a preference of how I wanted things to go, having learned how to not have expectations that were unrealistic, allowed myself to be flexible, allowed myself to have a fabulous time, allowed myself to take care of myself when I needed to, allowed myself to be present when this big situation happened, allowed myself to cry, allowed myself to feel overwhelmed, allowed myself to be sad, and then allowed myself to realize that every one of those places that I was before in my life, that was the best choice that I had at that moment, even if it wasn't a good choice. That moment, that's all I had. And I can love myself in that moment. I can be kind to myself in that moment. I can love that younger part of myself that was the best I knew. Man, every day I'm learning new things. And I'm so grateful for this spiritual journey because I just feel like I'm continuing to soak up like a sponge, and I giggle at myself at my naivety of something that maybe I learned new, and I think, oh, wow, that really explains this that I thought was this way, or opens up my perception so that I say, wow, I was so attached to seeing it this way, and now I see it a whole other way. It's like it's lifting all of that regret. And you can never be too late. If you think that you're in a place in your life where you're like, well, I already walked down this road this far, I got to keep walking it. No, you don't. No, you don't. We get to wake up and start our life fresh every single day. And every day that we think that we have made this bed and we have to lie in it, you are not giving yourself the incredible credit that you deserve of a life that you have lived that is supposed to be for your betterment. that is supposed to be for your learning, for your soul. This is your soul recovery, to have the life that you want for yourself. When you lay on your deathbed and you look back on your life, you want to be able to say, I was who I was, whatever that is for you. Loving, kind, generous, adventurous, successful, whatever those things are. And generally, if we really allow ourselves to look at what regret is about, it means that we look back and we so often, if you're really honest, it's about you not making the right choices for you. It's about you not being kind to yourself in those situations to choose you first. We tend to, us, people as codependents, as untreated Al-Anons, we tend to choose other people first over ourselves. And so if we allow ourselves to turn the page on the regret, to see it from a different perspective, to see that this is an opportunity for you to acknowledge and see what you don't want, to look at places in your life where you could have made a different choice and be kind to it and learn from it, so that as you're growing and as things are moving forward and as your life is expanding, you are becoming more and more in connection with your spiritual self, your higher power, whatever that is for you, and allowing it to guide you and direct you to your best self, to your highest good. And seeing each of those situations as being part of the journey. Every single one of those situations is part of the path. And when I look at this situation with Bodhi's injury, the biggest sort of issue is he doesn't have health insurance. And so it's really about the money. It's really about the fear of money and getting hurt and how much is this going to cost, and just having some perspective outside of it. Do I really not trust the universe will provide? That we needed to go to that first center so that he could get pain management, that he could get some x-rays so that we could know what to do next. And then we went to the next thing because we thought that he was going to need surgery, and that surgeon was meeting us at this other hospital. We did the steps that were the right steps for us, that were required for us to get from one step to the next. We got to the next hospital, more pain management. The surgeon took a look at the x-rays and said, you actually have more going on in there. It's going to have to wait. How would we know those things? And now we know. So instead of us beating ourselves up and saying, oh, you should have done it this way, or why didn't you do it like this? What if we let go of the perfection? What if we trusted Source? What if we trusted ourselves? What if we were kind to ourselves and just said, in each one of these moments, this was a choice that I made because it was part of a patterning. It was part of an old belief. It was part of a way that I saw the world. It was part of fear. It was part of what made sense at the time. But I'm ready to move out of those old patterns. I'm ready to make choices that are different. I'm ready to be kind to myself. I'm ready to see immediately, if I can, like I did with Bodhi's accident, that I can forgive myself, that I can step out of my panic and my fear and my immediate self-doubt and say, yeah, of course, that's how that went. Of course it did. That's how it was supposed to go. And everything is working out for its highest good. And here's what I learned. And next time I'll know to ask these other questions. And next time I'll be more wise. I can't be wise without all these experiences. And you can't know what's right for you in your life without knowing what doesn't work for you. So instead of seeing it as regret, offer yourself learning. Offer yourself the opportunity to make different decisions. Get out of the bed that you have been lying in. If that's what you think you have to be lying in, turn off the road that is not working for you. Trust and believe that you are being held and guided by Spirit that wants you to be your best, your healthiest self, This is a spiritual path to a happy and healthy life, which doesn't mean that it's not still complex and difficult. It means that you are happy and healthy in the midst of it. And you can choose that for yourself. One of the first steps is to let go of regret. Let go of the I should haves, if only I had. Be in presence right now. Allow yourself to grieve. Allow yourself to grieve the relationship that you didn't have, the job that you didn't have. Allow yourself to feel those feelings. It's not about pushing those down. But we are not going to live from that pain. We are not going to be in a state where that is the definition of who we are. And so now our life is like this. Every day you get to make a decision. Who am I? How am I connected to my higher power? What is the best for me? What is my highest good? How can I translate out into the world my best self? How can I live from my best self? How can I use regret as a way to learn? And how am I going to make choices today that will let me see my strength, my power, and my fullest self, and not be on my deathbed and say, wow, I knew those 10 years ago that I should have done this, and I was afraid. Step out of your fear and into your strength. You can do this. You can do this. Until next time, namaste. Are you wondering, how do I go deeper on my soul recovery journey? Or how do I support this great podcast? Well, here's your call to action. If you're ready for real inner change and would like to work directly with me, visit the website and book a coaching session. I'm here to support you on your unique path. I'm here to help you let go of the past, to deepen your connection with higher power, whatever that is for you, and then to discover and step into a happy and healthy life of your making. You can also become part of the Soul Recovery community. One way is to join the support group. It's the first Monday of every month. It's on Zoom from 6 to 7 p.m. Mountain Time, and you can register on the website and get your Zoom link. It's the same link every month. We are also on social media. Of course, there's Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, and now even Insight Timer. Yes, lots of ways to connect. There is even a private Facebook group that will allow you for more communication and conversation about soul recovery with your community. If you would like an extra bonus episode every Friday, you can become an Apple Podcast subscriber or choose your tier level of giving on Patreon. I'd also love all the listeners to subscribe on the website so that I can keep you informed on what's going on with the podcast, the community, with me, and anything that's up and coming and new and great about soul recovery. Also, if you just take a little bit of time and give me 5 stars, a quick review, share the podcast with friends and family, make sure you're subscribing however you listen to the podcast, we're helping even more people to have soul recovery in their lives. If this podcast is providing you spiritual nourishment and inspiration, thank you for going to the website, pushing the donate button, and giving whatever feels right to you. It means so much to me because I have this mission of sharing soul recovery with the world, and your donations, your bookings, your subscriptions, everything that you do to be part of this community is making all that happen. Together, we can do the work that will recover your soul. The Recover Your Soul podcast and its content is for educational purposes only and is not allied or representative of any organizations or religions. It's based on the opinions and experience of Reverend Rachel Harrison. Recover Your Soul claims no responsibility to any persons or entity for any liability, loss, damage, or cause alleged to be caused directly or indirectly as a result of its use. Applications or interpretations of the information represented herein. Take what you need and leave the rest.